Imagine the satisfaction of watching someone who tormented you face their downfall and knowing you were the one who orchestrated it. That's exactly what happened when I sat in a room full of school administrators playing a tape that would end my high school teacher's career. But let me start from the beginning. I was a senior in high school, not exactly the top of my class, but I kept my head down and stayed out of trouble. I was a C student and had never received detention. That was until I crossed paths with Mrs. Frank, a teacher who had been at the school for 10 years. She taught algebra, my worst subject, and I often struggled to keep up. My questions, which I thought were just part of learning, were met with sarcasm and belittlement. "And here comes the slow boy again," she'd say, or, "Really? We have to go extra slow for you today, don't we?" I tried to get help from the administration, but it seemed impossible to make them see the truth. This went on for half the year until I decided enough was enough. I went to the local Radio Shack, bought a recorder, and began documenting every insult she hurled my way. The recordings were legal in my state, so I knew I had a solid plan. Then came the day that changed everything. I asked a question in class, and Mrs. Frank responded with another belittling comment. Calmly, I stood up, packed my things, and headed to the nurse's office to dismiss myself from school. I was 18, so I could do that. At home, I compiled the recordings into a single, damning tape and returned to school the next day to present it to the administrators. Sitting in the principal's office, we listened to a few insults before he stopped the tape, realizing the gravity of the situation. He wanted more witnesses, including Mrs. Frank, present for what would happen next. The following morning, I walked into a room filled with board directors, the local school police officer, the principal, the vice principal, and Mrs. Frank herself. As the tape played, I watched the administrators' expressions shift from disinterest to shock, their mouths agape. Mrs. Frank, who started off confident, slowly realized the magnitude of her actions. She was essentially roasting herself in front of the most important people in the district. When the tape ended, the principal turned to me and said, "I think we have heard everything we need to. Thank you." I was quietly dismissed, but not before exchanging a final glance with Mrs. Frank. The next week, Mrs. Frank was gone. The story spread quickly, and I became something of a hero among my peers. I had not only managed to get her fired, but also ensured she couldn't easily find another teaching position in the area. Her career, once untouchable, was now in ruins. The tapes were kept by the administration to prevent legal issues. 15 years have passed since those events, but the memory remains vivid. I stood to gain vindication and justice for being belittled, and I got it.